What's up, YouTube? My name is Brian, and typically I am a professional tricky person. And that trick is what we call 5 years of my life wasted. Normally I'm doing videos on magic-related things, or things I think I have some amount of professionalism in. But today it's going to be a little bit different. This is going to be more generic for anybody who's doing a YouTube or just wants to have a fancy sign. Now, I originally wanted to get a neon sign, but they are very, very expensive. To get a good one, especially one that's going to show up with studio lights, which I have here, you're going to cost like 600 bucks. So this is a pretty good alternative because personally I don't want to drop 600 bucks on a background item that I'm only going to put in like a couple videos. Alright, so let me go over the materials that you're going to need. This is a pretty cheap thing. It should be under $100 depending on what materials you already have. So let's go over what you definitely need to buy if you're going to do this. The first thing is these wooden little letters. These are 3-inch letters. I'm spelling the word Apollo, so these came at $2 a piece. And to spell Apollo, it's 6 letters, A-P-O-L-L-O. Just making sure I'm not stupid. So it cost me around 12 bucks plus tax. And the fact that they're wood, it means I can sand them and manipulate them a little bit. So you're gonna need those, and if you have more letters in the word you're making, it's gonna cost you more, obviously. The next thing that you're going to need, you can do this with two things. You can do it with hobby wood, which is this here. Hobby wood has gotten ridiculously expensive in 2023, so you might want to just use pallet wood. If you can find like a pallet, rip it apart, use some of the pallet wood, that might work just as well. I may use pallet wood for the bottom, and then for the sides I might use some of this hobby wood. The hobby wood is just nice because it's lighter, and if it's going to be something you stick on a wall, you might want it to be pretty light. Oh, by the way, you also want to measure out your letters. You want to put them up on a counter and just take a tape measure or something and measure how much space they take, and then give about a ½ inch on either side of your letter, and that's how big your wood will be. Now, the last thing that you may want to grab is some trim. And the trim is basically to help diffuse the light. The light is going to be in the back of the box, and I want it to be blocked by the trim a little bit just because I want that light diffused a little bit. You can buy diffusers that will go in there, but I don't really want to have to worry about cutting those apart, putting them in, etc. And it's just another piece I have to buy, whereas I already have trim. So I'm pretty sure that this will help diffuse the light pretty easy. So that's what you're going to need. And then the last thing you may want to buy, and I have a USB powered LED lights. These were like under $10. I'll put links to everything down below. Prices might have changed because I did buy these a little while ago. You can also get ones that plug into the wall. Those are going to be much brighter, and then you don't have to worry about a battery system. But this option does allow me to plug into the wall, you know, with like a wall charger for a phone. But the downside is, the upside is I can plug a battery in, and then it's cordless, and it will be just on the wall by itself. It'll look nicer. But the downside, obviously, is the LEDs are not as bright. These get fairly bright, and I'm kind of hoping that in the box they'll be much, much brighter. But worst case scenario, I may just buy brighter lights. Not that big a deal. The other thing that you're going to want to get is some paint and maybe some finish. I would get a spray can of finish if you go that route. The idea here is that the inside of my box is going to be red, and then the letters and the outside is going to be black. And the reason for it is I want the glow of the red. I'm going to set my LEDs to red most of the time, and it's going to kind of glow red really, really well. Alright, so in terms of tools, the first thing that you will obviously need is a saw, because you need to cut some stuff up. I'm not going to be super precise. If I mess up cuts a little bit, I'm mostly going to sand any imperfections away. And then the other thing that you're going to need is wood glue. I don't have an example of wood glue in my office here, so here's a picture. Just go with the cheapest option, because honestly this is just a box on a wall. It's not holding like super tenuously unless you're going to make it into a shelf or something. Alright, so don't forget, measure for your needs, think about how deep you want your box, and here we go.
Alright, you're going to start off by measuring the letters as you see me doing here. Remember to add an inch on each side. So I actually just measured it. Now I'm measuring the boards, and I'm just going to cut them in size. Now you can use a handsaw to do this, but I'm going to cheat. Now, I'm not sure if you noticed, but a little trick to make sure your boards are exactly the same is to put them on top of each other while you're making those cuts. So even if you are a little bit off, at least both boards are off together. Now, you're going to want to start with the rougher sandpaper, your 60 grit, and just sand everything down as smooth as you can get it. And then you're going to start using your 220, and then a higher grit like a 300 or a 400 grit. Now, if you've never sanded anything before, make sure that you're sanding with the grain. All right, you don't want to sand against the grain. It's going to look disgusting. Make sure to feel the wood as you do this, because you'll start feeling it really start to smooth out, and it'll look a lot different. You'll see all the imperfections kind of disappear. All right, so these are the sides of the box. I cut them from the same pallet wood, so I didn't have to measure all the angles, but they are 4 inches high. It's just to give enough room for my 3-inch letters. If you buy different wooden letters, you're obviously going to have to make it a little bit taller just so they fit inside. I'd give yourself just 1 extra inch just to get enough room for them. Also, always make sure you line everything up just like I'm doing. Just kind of make sure everything's going to fit together before you glue it. Because once you glue it, it is glued and you're going to have to cut it off. The glue works really, really well. It seeps into the pores of the wood. And to be honest with you, I'm going to explain later in the video how exactly I messed up. But I did mess up this box that you're watching me do right now. And yeah, I had to remake this. So this is the diffuser strip for the wood. I'm gluing it right in there, and this is actually where I'm making that mistake, because my LED lights, I measured how big the LED strips were, and that space between the box and that piece of wood is where it needs to sit. I needed to actually double up my LED lights. I forgot I needed to do that, and so I only measured a ½ inch, and I really needed a full inch to put 2 rounds of the LED lights in there that you're going to see me do later. Now, when you buy the letters of the wood, they leave these nice, great staples in them, so you have to rip all of those staples out. Also, if you buy wood from Home Depot, they tend to put these stickers on it that are just, for some reason, impossible to just rip off. I ended up having to sand off the stickers off of some of the wood that I bought. But when you buy it from Michael's, they know how to sticker wood, and it just came right off. Other than these staples I just had to pull out, but this took like 2 seconds. Now, I also am going to sand this while my box is drying, and I just love sanding, as you can see. More and more sanding. Now we're going to get to the painting. I love painting. Not really. But the painting is really, really easy because this is just matte black. I get out the red paint, all my stuff. Make sure you sand them at least a little bit with a really fine grit sandpaper just to kind of make them look a little bit smoother. But I just gave them 2 layers of paint in the front and covered the entire things in black. Really easy paint job. Now, you don't have to do this, but I decided I wanted the inner color of my box to be different from the outer color, and I'm going to use boiled linseed oil on the outer side of the box. So in order to try to keep the paint from getting on the outside of the box at least too much, I taped the outside. You're going to see later it didn't really work, and I had to sand off some of the paint that kind of dripped through this cheapo paper. If you get painter's tape, it'll probably work a lot better. And I went ahead and I paint the entire center here. Now, you see, I messed up. So, more sanding! Yay! Now, I decided to stain the outside of my box using boiled linseed oil because it gives it a really light but woody finish.
Alright, so there's gonna be traffic. I have no other time and I'm almost done with this, but I made some mistakes. So one of the mistakes I made was this, the piece of wood that helps diffuse the light. I made the box and I put the thing a little bit too close, and I actually needed to double up on my light strip. It's gonna go around twice, and I didn't give enough room for that. So I actually had to remake the entire box. So I have another box sitting around that is not gonna be used. Yeah, so that was fun. And then I had this little shelf, It's going to block the battery. I glued that on there, and then I put boiled linseed oil. All you do is you take like a rag or something, you can rub it on it, and it looks really nice. It's like a really natural looking wood finish. The inside, I painted red, but I did something I didn't show on camera, which is I put a one of those cheap bottles of satin varnish on it that you can get at, you know, Hobby Lobby or, you know, Michael's. And that makes it a little bit shinier and makes it look just a little bit more finished. It's also going to help reflect the light a bit. So the last thing I'm doing right here is I've just drilled a tiny little hole right here for the USB cord. But obviously a USB cord is not going to fit through there. So the other thing I'm going to do is saw to that hole. So I cut the hole, and I'm just going to kind of saw right to it. Look at that. My notch won't come out because I slightly missed the hole with the saw. Luckily it's hobby wood, so I can pull it out. Now, the notch is not perfect at all, but because it's going to be hidden, you're not even going to see it.
And here we are to the last step, just putting in those LED strips in the back. And as you can see, I'm going to go and take them around twice just because these are USB powered. And I just want to give it as much light as possible for the strips to work. These are repurposed strips. I used them under a bar. And they weren't that bright under the bar, so I'm hoping that in a contained box like this, they were going to be much, much brighter. And I believe when you buy these particular strips, they come with a battery, a USB battery pack that you can just put AA's in. But if you have little like USB power batteries around, you can always put them in. And the piece of wood I said I glued on the front there, it's just, that's all it is a piece of wood. I just did that so that way the battery is blocked.
Alright, welcome to final thoughts and the final project. So here it is. It's a little bit out of focus, which is where it's meant to be honest. But I think it came out really, really well. I did add one little addition that I didn't put in the video, and that is, if you're looking at here, it's a lot more diffused, and that's because I added just simple over-the-counter wax paper. There are a lot of other options to diffuse the lights. Honestly, I tried a couple other things. This looked the best, and it was the simplest. So I just used some double stick tape. I used that rim line that I used to originally diffuse the LED lights, and then I put wax paper over that. I just cut it out perfectly so it looks pretty nice. And this is the final product. I'm going to show you one more additional thing about it. Alright, so here it is a little bit more up close, and I just want to show that on the bottom here, you can see all the LEDs, and you can see the battery. I just used some command strips to kind of put that in, and then the cord here, I just literally just taped it down. You can always do something more permanent than what I did here, but I wanted to be able to replace this battery because right now this is the battery that actually came with the original LED lights, so it's just containing some AA batteries, and I really wanted something rechargeable eventually, but for right now this works perfectly fine. I also added some inset picture hangers on each side so that way it's nice and even, and it can take a lot of weight, and it'll also double as a shelf as you saw it doing before. So hopefully this is super helpful for you guys. Hopefully some of you can make something like this, make it look nice and pretty just like this for pretty cheap. I would guess this is going to cost you under 30 bucks depending on what materials you already have lying around. I'm going to put links in the description for anything that I use. There'll also be the measurements for everything I did here, just so that way you have them if you want to make an exact replica of this. But if this was helpful for you, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Comment if you thought of any improvements, you saw me do something wrong, which I'm sure I did a lot of, or if you made this yourself and you came up with something better, make sure to leave it in the comment below. Help other people out. I hope this will help a few people, and subscribe if you haven't. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. Adios.